Lucky to have you.
Thank you. I move for passage. Thank you.
Mr. Wu, for what purpose?
Would the gentleman yield for actual questions?
I will yield for one question.
The gentleman yields for a question.
I have a few more than one.
But just one is all I'm going to do.
All right. It's up to you. Mr. Virdell, what is your purpose in this bill?
Purpose of the bill is to prevent taxpayer money from being used by the government to host government-sponsored buybacks.
Why?
That was only one question. Yes, sir.
Are you,
Move for passage.
I'm sorry, are you really not going to answer questions?
That was one question. Yes, sir.
I
Show of hands. Who wants me to answer questions real quick?
Mr. Wu, for what
All
purpose?
right. We're
Would
good.
the gentleman yield to answer serious questions about his very real
Okay,
legislation?
I will yield for you. Yes, sir. But as long as you don't repeat questions.
The gentleman yields for questions.
Mr. Virdell, why are we stopping local governments from taking actions that they feel is necessary to protect their city?
Well, according to Chief McManus of San Antonio, Chief McManus in 2019 said he is not keen on gun buybacks and says he's done a number of gun buyback programs in other cities and they didn't work. He also is quoted as saying that the number of guns recovered in no way reduced violent crime. And in San Antonio Police Department, Deputy Chief Jesse Salome said weapons surrendered in the gun buyback program were not the type of guns typically used in street crimes. And in fact, none of the weapons surrendered at the event were ever used in a crime. And the amount of money that's been spent is shocking that they have spent on taxpayer dollars to not reduce crime. If you go back to 1974, when Baltimore first did their gun buyback program, when adjusted for inflation, they spent the equivalent of today's money of $4.3 million. Reports suggested that firearms were turned in by individuals who were afraid, blah, blah, blah. However, homicides and firearm-related assaults rose by over 50% following the Baltimore buyback, raising concerns among policymakers about effectiveness. At the 2023 San Antonio gun buyback program, the police department spent just on overtime $27,000 to pay off for officers to be there, and that does not include all the other costs that they spent on it.
What if those gun buyback programs have other policy goals other than just removing the guns?
I apologize, I can't hear you.
What about if those gun buyback programs had other policy goals other than just purely the reduction of crime?
Yeah, I'm sure that somebody, I mean, I've watched some city council interviews where they had some other ideas of what it would do, but the data shows that there was no positive effect in a reduction of crime.
So if San Antonio doesn't think this is a good idea, why should other cities that still find value in the programs, why should we ban them all? Why can't San Antonio just not do it themselves?
Well, the problem is that the city is often ignoring the citizens. And in Houston, the gun buyback program, which is part of the One Safe Houston initiative, cost at least $2.6 million.
Mm-hmm. And those programs are widely supported by the people of the city of Houston.
I don't believe that to be true.
Have you done polling?
Have you done polling?
No, but
Okay.
I have been to multiple gun buyback programs in my districts that were overwhelmingly popular, that people lined up around the block for hours and hours and hours to trade in their weapons.
You know
And
who loves
in
gun buyback programs?
And in fact, most of the guns, you're right, most of the guns that were there were not guns that were used in crimes, because that would be kind of a, I don't know, silly thing to do, to give to the police a weapon that you use in a crime. But they are weapons that could be used in crimes in the future, and guns that often are unsafe. Many of the guns that are being turned in are guns in very poor condition that if someone tried to use them...
Yes, sir. Is this your question?
Well, I'm trying to lay the groundwork for the
Okay.
question, because you're asking me why I'm asking these questions, and I'm telling you why, right? Because there are other reasons for these gun buyback programs that...
Do you know what happens to those guns that are bought in the gun buyback programs?
Often they are destroyed and or sometimes sold if they're in good condition.
So what happens is sometimes a serialized part is destroyed, but then all the components, barrels, triggers, stocks, all that, are then sold to contractors who then resell it back to the public.
And if they're resold, then that's fine. The point is that there were people in the community who did not want those guns in their homes.
And there are many other ways to do
and
that.
this was a simple way for them to do it.
At millions of dollars per city that's doing this, and the estimate by Trice over the time period this is going on is over $1 billion right now. With no reduction in crime. For the record, that's a very important part of this. And this is taxpayer money that has not been approved by the taxpayers to be utilized for that purpose.
Maybe there's no reduction in crime because there are so many guns out on the street that even after removing that one little buyback is not enough. Maybe there needs to be more gun buybacks in order for you to see the results.
Let me reread what happened
it's
here.
insufficient.
Homicides and firearm-related assaults rose by over 50% following the Baltimore buyback. So are you saying you're okay with the homicides being raised after a buyback program?
Is that a peer-reviewed study that says that is a correlation that you can prove that that
Yes.
homicide went up because of the gun buyback?
Yep, it says that
Which journal?
policymakers have reviewed this.
Which journal is it in?
You go find it. So,
You're citing it.
well, that's fine. I'm also off of my notes right here, which came from research.
Do you understand what a peer-reviewed journal is?
I do.
Okay.
Are you
Peer-reviewed.
going to ask me about the bill or peer review journals?
Well, I mean, you brought up the bill. You brought up the.
I brought up that it does increase it by 50% according
Yeah.
to the studies after the Baltimore
Whose
gun
study
buyback.
is it?
That was done by policymakers is what I've got on my notes. I don't have the study written here.
By university.
Okay, is your intent to drag this out or to simply make a point so we can move forward to voting on the bill?
My intent is to ask you questions about.
Well, I've watched you over the time period that we've been on the floor, and your intent is to repeat questions often.
Because you don't answer the questions.
No, many members here answer your questions like 17 times in a row. Mr. Speaker, I move passage.
Mr. Virdell.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I move to extend the time that was used up by the hazing.
Members, you've heard the motion. Is there any objection to the motion to extend time?
Okay.
There is objection. This is a division vote on the motion to extend time. A record vote has been requested. All those in favor of the motion to extend the gentleman's time vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. The clerk will ring the bell. Show Mr. Virdell voting. Show Mr. Virdell voting nay. Show Ms. Kerwin voting nay. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? There being 81 ayes and 56 nays, the motion prevails. The gentleman's time is extended.
All right.
Mr. Wu, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield for questions?
Does the gentleman yield for questions?
I will yield for
The
questions.
gentleman yields for questions.
Non-repetitive.
Thank you so much. Mr. Virdell, even if you say that there is no noticeable reduction in the crime, in shootings because of a single buyback program or several buyback programs, if the city uses the buyback programs as a method to have discussions with the community about public safety and the need for gun safety, why can they not do that?
Well, if my bill passes, because the law will say they can't.
So you don't have a reason for stopping them from doing that. You just
Oh,
don't
absolutely
Like
have a reason for it. It doesn't reduce crime. It uses taxpayer money against their own will. And we are going to say that they cannot take taxpayer money and use it to buy back useless guns and increase the amount of crime that happens after those buybacks. You know who loves gun buybacks? I'll tell you. The people that like me that like to go buy guns, because we can go stand at that line as they're waiting to get in there, and we can buy those guns super cheap in private transactions. And those private transactions that you are against, that you want to see background checks performed for.
And if the city decides to destroy those guns, then what?
What do you mean?
If the city,
If this passes, then it's done. They don't do that.
Mr. Virdell, you understand that you can have multiple reasons for doing something. Like
Yeah.
the city does not if a city says that we have great value in doing this, when we do it, it brings attention to the issue, it brings attention to a community. These programs are often done in low-income communities where many of these crimes happen. Right? Do you understand that?
No, I don't.
Okay. And the fact that you don't understand that as a bill author is very telling.
The fact that you are wording it incorrectly means I don't understand what you're trying to insinuate.
That the cities use these programs for multiple purposes, and the intent isn't just to reduce crime or reduce the number of shootings, but to bring attention to this issue in those communities.
So you're saying we're going to spend millions of dollars just to bring attention to it?
Yes.
That sounds like a terrible use of taxpayer money.
We do that all the time. You do that in many bills today.
So you believe that criminals are turning their guns in right now?
No, we believe that gun owners whose guns may be used in the future for crimes.
I move passage.
Or used to hurt themselves